Okay, welcome everybody to the Animation Today podcast for January 15th. I am your host, Mark Pudleiner. And again, welcome. Just a quick thank you for anyone that's come by our Animation Today website or have signed up for the YouTube channel to follow along. We really appreciate that support, of course. And if you happen to write any comments, we welcome that. We will reply to them as soon as we can and keep that conversation going. So again, thank you so much for being a part of this as we go forward. So okay, this article today, January 15th, is a controversial one. It has to deal with Hitler, animating Hitler in World War II. It was all during the propaganda films. In this case, it's the article is regarding the one of the shorts that Disney did, and it is controversial. How you depict Hitler, and basically it was with these animated shorts, they were made to, make him look really foolish, making fun of him, demonizing him. So this is the approach they did that. We know it's a sensitive subject matter. Of course it is. But let's just go forward with the article. And okay, so the article for January 15th is this. This is Walt Disney's one of their propaganda films in World War II. The company actually signed a contract with the American government to do 32 short animated propaganda films dealing with the World War II subject matters against Germany and Japan, et cetera. And this is their Education for Death short. It was just over 10 minutes long in length, dealing with a story about Hans, a little boy, German boy, and growing up and going through the whole Hitler youth storyline, becoming a Nazi soldier by the end. So, pretty serious subject matter. So, Disney approached it. They had some of the heavy hitters animating on this. Is some really nice stuff. It's Milt Kahl, Frank Thomas, Ward Kimball, and even Bill Tyler. They all animated on this short. So, this is one of those things that you don't really get to see nowadays. It is a banned cartoon. They have banned cartoons due to, adult content, nudity, foul language, racism, anti-Semitism, Nazi visuals, et cetera, et cetera. And so this is one of those banned cartoons that they had. And it's interesting because for them to get involved with this and to go ahead into the subject matter, it doesn't seem like something Disney would really do. But I was listening to the Skull Rock podcast recently. This is my friend Dave Bossard's podcast and he has his partner L. John Go, and they this podcast is really interesting, and I would recommend you visiting. It has interviews with the one-on-one on artists. They go into details, and one of my old directors, Ron Clements, he was directing. He's one of the directors on Hercules when I animated, and his partner is John Musker. But Ron, he said a quote during this podcast, and it's in yellow here. You can see it. It says, he says, the seeds of success can be in failure, and the seeds of failure can be in success. And I look at that. So the seeds of failure can be in success, and it's very true because when I'm looking at Walt Disney, and this is, there some graphs here from Wikipedia regarding the production costs and revenues of the Walt Disney Company animated films back in that time period. And Snow White, was just over say 1.5 million production cost, but the revenue generated in huge. It was over $8 million. So great for the company. And then as they went forward, that's Snow White, Pinocchio. It cost just over 2.5 million, but it was a profit as well. But the company had then moved to the main lot, their production costs, the cost of the artists, and Fantasia came out in 1940, and it really it didn't take with the audience. It hurt the studio, the cost of Fantasia and how little it made, and then Bambi bumped up a little bit. But the thing with this as well, during this time period, there was also a strike went on in the studio, and the cost of the new studio, the artists, the employees not really being happy, so they were able to make a deal with the government to basically keep the studio going. Having these 32 short films with the contract, they were able to reshift and allow money to still come in at a steady pace. So artists were able to, they sort of reshuffled and rebalanced things. Some people were laid off. There was that whole strike that got sorted out, and so they were able to continue on, which they did. But so going forward with this, the Education for Death being one of the propaganda films, I did look at this as far, as far as a review. And this is one of those articles I found in the old newspaper, 1942, December, actually Christmas Day. As it says, it is from the Jewish press, as goes, after a auspicious beginning, the theme gets tangled in over caricature and winds up abruptly without saying enough. So, and as they says here at the bottom here, it says, this is when they were talking about Der Fuhrer's Face, which is another propaganda film. It says, it isn't comical. The laugh sticks in one's throat. Brilliant animation cannot make the Nazis funny. And, very much respect the point of view, because it is such a serious subject with all the horrors that went on. Here, I'll go forward to this. This is Charlie Chaplin. This is during that time period. He released this, The Great Dictator in 1940, where he's making this a satire of Hitler in Germany. And, it was a comedy, but it had a very serious meaning as well. So he uses popularity to get the message out there. So this is one of those combinations with art, entertaining people, but also there's a story there. So, but let's go forward with The Education for Death, and just I'll go through the story really quick. So this is Walt Disney's Education for Death. It was released in January 15th, 1943. Walt Disney presents Education for Death, the making of the Nazi, and it's the story of one of Hitler's children, adapted from the book from Gregory Zimmer. He's an American author. Okay, so it starts here, and this is a young couple in Germany. They just had their first child, and they're registering his birth. They're talking to the authorities with, getting the birth certificate figured out, and they're handed this passport, and it is their passport with their child's name, Hans, and with a sort of slight, reminder or, suggestion that there's room for 11 more children to help populate the country. So, and then when Hans, starts to get a little bigger, he goes to kindergarten. And this is one of the fairy tales that they would tell the children. Now, remember, this is propaganda.
Hans was taught that the wicked witch was democracy.
So, of course, there's a prince that comes and saves the day. I wonder who he is. And chases away the evil democracy.
Democracy has fled.
I wonder who this prince is. Who is this prince that's saving the day? Who is the beautiful princess?
The beautiful princess is Germany.
There you go.
And the brave, handsome knight, you know who he is.
There he is, the man. And, he starts flipping out here, which he does. I just wonder the animators that did this, because this next scene it's so funny to me. Let's watch it. Like what? I mean, all right, who did that? If anyone knows, that scene is just so funny. The going back and forth, the timing. Then the prince goes to pick him up, and this has such a great weight to it, and the drawing, the structure and the volume here. Watch when he rotates her body. Look at that. It's so nice, right? Okay, now we get back to more of the serious, storytelling. And as they're saying in the story, the child is sick, and the state is going, hey, you gotta stop babying your kid. If there's any unfit kid, children can be taken away, never to be seen from again. That's the threat, and unless she stops sort of babying this child, the state will have to step in. So it's pretty intense. And, and they're going to take over this whole situation. So Hans recovers, and, here they are later. He's in school now, and he's being taught a lesson. Here's a lesson. Here's a little rabbit. Let's watch this lesson that they're being taught. The fox chases that rabbit. Oh, the rabbit, smaller, has nowhere to go. And the fox eats them.
Now let's see what they learn from this little lesson.
So what did he learn? And Hans, his view is this.
Das arme Häschen.
He said the poor rabbit. Is he out of his mind?
Donnerwetter nochmal! Dummkopf!
So the poor rabbit, he's having empathy for the rabbit. No, wrong answer. So he gets scolded and gets a punishment for, thinking about the rabbit. Don't think about the rabbit. So as the story goes, we show, they show young Hans here as one of the Hitler's youth marching. He's getting older. He's a teenager, and then of course he's a soldier that's marching from there. And that's basically the education is complete.
Trampling on the rights of others.
Now this is pretty intense. This is at the ending, but just the whole story of the making of a Nazi, watching this little kid grow, marching as he gets older and older, and then this.
For now, his education is complete. His education for death.
So it's pretty intense. I think it's getting the message across pretty good. So I know, there can be some comments that is not strong enough, but that's pretty heavy. No, at the very end that's the end. And, we did see this marching, the marching that's in this short. Disney reused it again in a film. When I first started at the studio, I didn't animate on it. I started on Hunchback, but it's in Lion King. And let's watch the march here.
The future is littered with prizes, and though I'm main addressee.
So, and that was the using that Nazi march in that, the Scar song, based on the whole German march there. So, okay, so that was the Education for Death from Walt Disney. And I thought going forward, it might be interesting to find other examples of Hitler being animated during the whole World War II propaganda time period. And I found a few examples. Let's go ahead with the first one. It was released in 1942, August 1st. It's the Ducktators. And the story is there's a couple, they have a black egg that's going to be hatched, and they're a little confused by it. And this is what happens.
Mama, was ist los? What's this, a dark horse?
And the character's name is Adolf Hitler that comes out. And as the story, as it continues, the dove of peace has finally had enough and takes things in his own hands and deals with Hitler and his cronies.
Oh, yes.
And the crowd is all happy. So, okay, so now this one is a parody of the Three Little Pigs, and the wolf character is Adolf. He gets blown up, and he finds at the very end of the cartoon, he finds himself in this place here.
Why? Where am I? Have I been blown to?
It's a possibility.
And then, at the end of Adolf, and you'll see the sentence at the end about buying war bonds, supporting the war effort. Now, this one is a Superman cartoon. This one is Jungle Drums. In 1943, this was released, propaganda film, and it's dealing with Superman saving Lois Lane, coming in, and there's a bad guy, and he jumps down and he throws him off to the side so Lois Lane can radio the American airplanes here. And there's German submarines that are lining up the ships to sink them, and then this happens.
Torpedoes 1 and 2 ready, Herr Kommandant.
And they all go down. And then, at the very end here, you'll see Adolf Hitler. It's at the very end of the cartoon. This is when we see him, and he's listening to the radio broadcast, and he gets up and he's, turns off the radio in disgust because of what happened. And here, I'll hit play.
In this action, an entire fleet of Axis submarines was destroyed by American dive bombers, affording the troop ships a safe crossing. On the mighty mission, praise the Lord.
So it didn't turn out. So he stands up and turns his back to the camera, turning off that radio. So this one is called Spies. This is 1943. Private Snafu is an official film. War Department, and there's the main character. And this one has to deal with basically loose lips can sink ships. So it's just a short that sort of reminds people to be very careful when you're in public if you know anything. And in this case, he's drinking. The story plays out where this guy, he's drinking, have a good time, and there's his lips that are sealed, but then he opens them because after too many drinks, he he starts to get those loose lips. And then he, there's a pretty lady, and he starts talking with her and starts, saying things that he shouldn't be saying about what's going on. And of course, without him knowing, she is actually giving the information and gives it to her pigeon carrier it goes straight to Adolf Hitler. And next thing you know, the ship where our hero is on, in the middle of probably Atlantic or Pacific, and surrounded by German subs, and look out, a big explosion. And then he finds himself here.
Now, who in hell do you suppose it was that let my secret
And then
out?
the Hitler character.
What was that I heard you say, my little sauerkraut?
And so he's like, who did that? Who sunk the who told them that? It was him. And so Hitler, holds up the mirror to our man, and so yeah, he turns into the horse's ass. That's the final sort of gag at the end regarding, don't talk when you're out in public. So I did find a sell from this that was from the original for sale at the auction back in 2015, and it sold for over $3,000. I thought that was interesting for that one, again, World War II propaganda film. Okay, so this next one is Scrap Happy Daffy, which is Daffy Duck, and it has to do with in World War II, the American public were asked to, help donate any scrap metal or iron or any, basically any kind of metals that would help out with the war effort. And in this short here, Scrap Happy Daffy, Hitler is reading the newspaper and finding out that the scrap pile is helping with the Americans beating a battle against Mussolini. And so Hitler is reading this in the newspaper and he's flipping out. And there's a weird gag here where he is flipping out here and then he chews along the dotted line. And I guess that's the gag. Instead of ripping, across the, ripping the dotted line, it's like chewing. So anyways, going for Daffy the Commando, this one here is a short, a Looney Tune, and with this is basically a rotoscope of Hitler. They rotoscope the man acting out, and Daffy comes in and just hits him on the head. And this is the very end of the cartoon. and he's yelling Schultz, because that was his personal assistant Schultz, and so he's yelling for his personal assistant there. So the next one here is Russian Rhapsody, and this is has to do with, it's a Warner Brother cartoon. The Fuhrer is furious because so what's cooking Doc? Anyways, he's flipping out and he needs someone to go after Russia. So I love that they put these certain words in there. Anyways, so he's like, like it's so good. And then the gag here. So he needs someone to go do this job.
To bomb Moscow, I will send the best pilot in the Reich, the greatest Superman of all times.
So who's the greatest Superman of all time that he's going to get to bomb? Is Adolf is going to do it in person himself, of course. So the cartoon, what it is that he's on. This is Russian Rhapsodies, where he's on the airplane and the gremlins, on the little creatures on the airplane, are just causing all kinds of trouble for Hitler here. And by the way, all these little characters are all actually designed after artists that were in production. Like there's some guys there, right there. There's Bob Campbell with the Pixac right here. And the blowtorch, right? Where's the blowtorch? Right here. This is Fritz Friedling right there. So again, they had fun, designing the characters. That's the producer, Leon Schlesinger, and so going forward, all those gremlins are causing trouble and beating Hitler up. And this is great because there's a swastika hitting a skunk, and then jackass, and then it throws them over, and as it goes, Hitler is just flipping out. He's going after the gremlins with his knife, and he flips out because they hold up a mask of Stalin there, and then they finally get rid of him out of the airplane. He's falling, and here's the gag: he falls down, and the plane's going to land on him, so he runs where he's not going to land, and of course, it lands right on him. So. Okay, and that's the end there. And now this is the next one. This is actually, you're going fast forward now. We're in the 80s, and this is just when Hitler shows up in this TV movie with Flash Gordon, The Greatest Adventure of All, and it was actually produced by Filmation. And in this one, this is when Hitler shows up as Ming the Merciless is planning his evil plan here.
Swastika markings, my gift to a friend.
So we see what his plan is, and then he goes on to the video here, and you can see the plan as this shows Hitler with the troops.
Soon, my friend, soon.
Now, just to play out this at the end here of the movie, Flash is, basically fighting with him and throwing him off to his death. And he looks and he goes falling down, and he turns into a robot. He's actually a robot.
A robot?
But not really, because this is really the Ming.
Apply to me.
Enjoy your victory, Flash Gordon.
And that's
Now we will meet again.
There you go. And of course, Flash, he always gets the girl at the end.
Adventure, that's our dream.
And there you go.
And it's a good one.
And that's our dreaming. It's a good one. So there you go. This is actually a German propaganda film made in Germany. And with this one here, it was 1944. And it's basically explaining or telling the story of this little character here. And he wants to go out of his house, out of his where he is safe. And he wants to go experience the world. And the story is that he comes across all this hardship, all these things. When you go outside of your protective door, bad things will happen. And that's basically the message here that they made with this short. This is just a minute. I just added a minute. So there's the house there. That's a little character. He wants out, and he sees that the door is open of his cage, the little bird. And so off he goes, and he's having a good time. But then, there's a big kite that gets in his way, and it causes problems, and it throws him spinning around. And so again, it's not that nice outside. And then he looks down, and he starts to get a little woozy because he's got, it's like he's so high up in the air. He gets some height issues, which is odd for a bird. And his eyes get all watery. He's falling down into the chimney where there's pollution and all the smoke. And he comes out, and then he has to go hide in this, and he gets kicked out. So there's a lot of things that are going wrong here. And he's on the scarecrow, and the water goes on him. He scares him, and then the wind throws him over, and there's a cat getting him. So you know what? The message is, let me go back where I'm safe and not venture out. So that's basically the German propaganda back in 1944. And that was really to rival the Disney studios as far as they wanted the animation to look just as good. So, and then we know what happened there. So, okay, so let's go forward. So the one note I wanted to make as far as with World War II and the Disney studios, that the thing that did happen when all the men were leaving for the war was that it opened up the opportunities for the women artists. And in this note here. It says that among them are animators Ruthie Thompson, Virginia Fleener. They enjoyed being able to have opportunities to move up. And after the war ended, the women's roles continued on as far as being artists and not just being, centered around the cell painting department. So, I mean, here's a photo here of Ruthie Thompson right there on the left. Dot Smith, Donna Lupo walking with Walt, and and how great that something positive became out of that negative. So I thought it would be really good if we end with just Charlie Chaplin, and at the very end of the movie, he gives a speech, and I thought it was fitting for our article today to end with Chaplin and his words here. So I will just play the last part.
Let us fight for a new world, a decent world that will give men a chance to work, that will give youth a future and old age a security. By the promise of these things, brutes have risen to power, but they lie. They do not fulfill that promise. They never will. Dictators free themselves, but they enslave the people. Now let us fight to fulfill that promise. Let us fight to free the world, to do away with national barriers, to do away with greed, with hate and intolerance. Let us fight for a world of reason, a world where science and progress will lead to all men's happiness. Soldiers, in the name of democracy, let us all unite!